Erev Tov Binyamina. Good morning in Seattle. Greetings to all of our friends of Israel around the world. My name's Wayne Firestone. I'm the executive director of the America-Israel Friendship League. And have we got an incredible program for you today. Thanks for joining us. As always, let us know where you're calling in from. And I'm going to start this one by asking, where is your favorite beach in Israel? And for any of you that put into the chat now, anyone watching us live, if you put in the Camaraderie, you might get some side views from some of the people on our panel today. Indeed, we're here to learn about SEASU, and we have a panel of people who have been involved with this great organization. We're going to learn about how one navigates the ocean, and at the same time, how one sort of navigates challenges that we've experienced in our past, and indeed for veterans, the often experience of trauma that people deal with. First and foremost, we're going to hear from the two co-founders, Michael McDevitt-Shai, who is a native of New York, but has been in Israel for the last 10 years. He's a 25-year brand building expert, and he's going to share about what the brand and the meaning of SEASU is with you shortly. His co-founder, Ayal Abro, hails from South Africa. He himself is an IDF veteran and a co-founder of SEASU. Since 2016, it has been a focus to think about how this organization can serve veterans and interact with veterans in a way that is helpful. We have Shlomo Nimrodi, who is an IDF veteran and wounded warrior, who is also a serial entrepreneur. I don't know if we'll actually have time to hear about all the different ventures that he's been involved in outside of the ocean. He's led 3 IPOs. He's had several merger and acquisitions. And when his co-kayakers refer to him in the ocean, they say he is both the head and the spirit of the veterans in this group. So we're going to really look forward to meeting Shlomo, as well as Eran Perry, who is also a paddler representative and an IDF vet. And to sort of ground this in the language also of psychology, SEASU's staff psychologist, Roy Haziza, is with us, and he spent his entire career working with academic and research, dealing with issues of PTSD and other issues of trauma that will help talk about how this remarkable organization and their activities is helping people today. Michael and Roy, but Michael and Ayal, before I sort of kick off and give you the opportunity to share a little bit from your perspectives, I know we have this great piece, a video that'll give everyone sort of a little bit of an introduction to what this looks like and actually where you hang out a lot of the time on a regular basis. So let's cue up our first video, and then Michael, you can share a little bit about its significance.
Lost limbs, lost moments, and depleted spirits are faced and overcome on a sea that doesn't care where you come from or what you come with, only what you take away. We are SEASU, a therapeutic and transformative paddling program for veterans living in the wake of physical, emotional, and spiritual trauma, from acute physical injury to PTSD. Our mission is to establish a worldwide network of bases that transcend borders and ideology, to provide veterans with local membership in international competition, all under a banner of belonging, healing, and purpose. Our name is inspired by a Finnish concept, best understood as extraordinary courage, undying resilience, and a resolute purpose when adversity is unthinkable and success unlikely. Our craft is called a surf ski, built for 1 or 2 paddlers and designed to cut through water with efficiency and speed, from lakes to rivers to seas. Our team is comprised of a tight-knit unit of former soldiers, kayaking legends, healthcare professionals, and volunteers dedicated to building an inclusive and sustainable organization that serves our veterans with integrity and fidelity. In silence or conversation, we are understood, supported, connected. SEASU, where we belong.
Michael, take us to the essence of your brand. This one I know is very close to your heart.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Wayne. And I'd like to thank Cassia and Giovanni and all the rest of the good people at AFL for your interest in our program and your promotion of it. And we're very much pleased that we have this platform to share. As for the brand itself, it's something that spoke to me from the very get-go. The fact that I'm a native New Yorker, without a military background, coming to Israel 10 years ago, I'm a bit of the odd man out in the group of SEASU paddlers, but I have found a real home here and a very much the purpose and meaning and balance that so many of the other paddlers have attributed the program to. By chance or destiny, I had met Eyal, and he asked me early on to take a few photos of the paddlers, this paddling veterans group, and being the fly on the wall, seeing the guys get ready, going out in the water was inspirational, and even more so when I jumped in on my kayak and paddled out with them. It's extremely, as I said in the video, a tight-knit group of people. And we're out there all together, helping each other, seeing each other in silence or conversation to help, to have fun, the joy, the amount of camaraderie and also competition. It's funny that, with Shlomo being the leader, he's one of our oldest paddlers, but we're having always a tough time keeping up with him. It's very, making us work hard out there, and also, challenging us off the water as much as in the water. So I'm just, I'm gracious to be that Eyal asked me to be part of this and help found what SEASU is today, from its original inception to bringing it to a broader audience throughout Israel, and also we want to bring a broader audience throughout the world. We can speak more of that at the end, but I would, I'd like to hand it over to the next video, which will feature one of our paddlers as a testimonial, who's an incredible guy that after the first few paddles, we didn't know if he would come back or not. He was extremely seasick, but he came back and has become one of the strongest people out there, and also another inspiration to us all. So I'll get to the video, and then we can get to Eyal's story, as well as the more important ones of Shlomo and Iran, whose experience I think will really speak to the audience.
Thanks, Michael.
I came to SEASU just to find an interesting experience, an adventure. But what I found is balance. My mind is clear. I feel really good after I paddle. It is always different. I found good friends, good people. Thanks to SEASU.
Eyal, tell us a little bit more about what it's been like to meet individuals who are going through this journey, and what as one of the co-founders you see the organization doing today.
My story, it's at the end of the day, it's all a very personal story, but it's a story that connects everyone together. I was born in Israel, but I grew up in South Africa. I returned to Israel when I was 18, not with any intention on serving in the military. I was a free diver and water polo player. And the famous John Lennon sentence of what life happens when you're busy making other plans is pretty much my story, with obviously no regrets. So I found myself returning to Israel with very little Israeli identity, and in search of identity, I found myself being enrolled into the military service. I was offered a special sportsman's an option to be I was in the national water polo team. I decided to give that up and to go become a combat to serve in the in the combat region. After 3 years finishing my service, after you come out, and experiencing something that is not something that you can really explain, one of the strongest feelings, or what I found most, is what I was lacking is the comradeship. But a year later, after working in some security company, I started realizing that something wasn't completely right. I was having panic attacks, and I had no idea where it was coming from. I returned to Israel and obviously treated myself. But what was interesting is that because I, in my childhood, being in the ocean a lot, straight after my military, basically what I found is that I was spending almost every day by the sea. Only today did I understand what that sea was for me. So after, going through a process of treatment, I, at the age of 35, decided that, I'm going to introduce surf ski paddling into Israel. And at some stage, the military being my identity back into Israel, and obviously my heart lying in those areas with soldiers and, people that experience what I experienced and what others experienced in those places, I also realized that the craft itself basically puts everyone on a par. So whether someone is amputated or whether someone, has other PTSD issues, on the water, everyone's the same. So after I managed to establish the surf ski paddling into the country, I promised myself that I will start a program which introduces ex-veterans into the same experiences or the same qualities that I experienced from the ocean. The craft itself also has its qualities because you have to concentrate and be balanced. So what I basically had learned or used for helping myself, only after introducing the surf skis, I really understood that it's something that, others can also use to help on a weekly basis, along with creating a new camaraderie, that tight-knit unit where, after you finish your service, the relationships that you build in those situations is also something that's really difficult to find in the day-to-day, university, work life. And I decided that there's two things that I can introduce and bring that. And one is obviously the camaraderie, and, on a weekly routine, we meet together, and that building up of that relationship and that friendship, something similar to what I had experienced before, which was missing. and which everyone in many ways feels missing because it's difficult to find, along with the qualities of the ocean. And I guess the project, you know, it speaks for itself. It proves that it's right. Not that I was looking for something to prove.
Well, you certainly have assembled a group of people who are comrades at sea, and that dynamic is something that we're really excited to explore further. Shlomo, when did you discover you're a leader in wherever you go? That's come across very clearly from your friends and colleagues that do this with you. Before we talk about some of that, what that looks like, I'm sort of curious when you figured out that this was for you, and how you figured that out. And maybe you could take us from that moment of personal discovery through your willingness and ability to share that with others and hold them accountable to themselves as well as the group.
Yeah, so I first of all, this is it's the first time I see some of these videos, and it's quite amazing. I've been with the group, Eyal, I think probably 3-4 years by now, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yes.
I was injured when I was
3
years. Yeah, I was injured when I was 21 years old. Many years ago. I'm now actually 64 years old. Okay, I'm a grandfather of 5 grandchildren. Okay, and when I was injured, I was in one of the special forces units in the Israeli Defense Force, and sports was always my something I like to do. And I was injured. I lost my left leg above the knee, and several, I would say, a lot of collateral damage in different parts of my body. So I was limited in terms of my abilities to do things I like to do, like running. But throughout the years, and I won't take everybody's time, I did find all sorts of challenging sports activities. I ski, I did triathlons. I lived in the States actually for 15 years, and I managed to do the New York City Triathlon, the Westchester County Triathlon. And I guess in one of those ski trips, somebody told me about this surf ski activity, and they said, you know what, this is going to be something perfect for you. And I came again, it was 3-4 years ago, and fell in love at first sight, to be honest. I mean, I tried initially to do this with my prosthetic leg, and at some point I felt this is more of an anchor. I just left it in the room and started to do the activity with only one leg, and it's been a passion. I mean, I think one of my friends here on the video said that every time you go to the ocean, it's like different arena. It's different weather, different vision, different feeling, and it's exciting. It's the adrenaline. I think there is an amazing camaraderie. Eyal and Michael managed to assemble quite an impressive group of people to support the activity, which has been consistently involved, not a trivial matter. I try to bring people, and Eran Perry, which has turned off his video. Eran, you're going to be called on in a second, is one of the guys that I've met. When was that, Eran? I think about 10-15 years I met Eran for the first time. Eran was in 2006. Eran?
Yeah, it's 15 years now. I'm just turning my video on. 15 years, yes. We're not getting any younger.
You kidding me? So Eran, we can't see the video, but just until Eran set it up, Eran and I were born in the same day, September 13. Different year, but the same day. And,
13 years later, but 30, maybe.
Yes. Go ahead, Ran.
All right, so yeah, what surf skills for me? First of all, 15 years I was injured in the Second Lebanon War. Same kind of injury exactly as Shlomo described. I'm an above knee right leg amputee. So while sitting in the rehabilitation, thinking about the future, I was told another older inspirational guy want to come visit me. I said, I don't have time for that. I don't want to see him. I don't want him to inspire me. I don't want to hear about any other amputees again. But then he insists. And then I met Shlomo suddenly. We immediately realized we were born at the same day, which was mind-blowing, wasn't it, Shlomo? It was nice to... we were amazed by it. And since I met him, everything he said, I start skiing again, cycling, swimming for long distances. Shlomo, how many times we went skiing together and amazed the whole mountain?
Not enough.
Not enough. Not enough. That's true. But many times we became best friends. I think it's kind of between father and son and best friends. And then we looked for the new challenge. Then surf ski arrived. I was very skeptic at the beginning, but then morning after morning after morning, we just fell in love with it. It just, I don't know, the combination of getting early in the morning, see the sunrise, realizing that the sea is different every day, challenging the cold water, overcoming the cold water mainly, and then again the group of people which take care of each other and enjoying the nature. What do you say? What do you think, Shlomo?
No, I agree with you. I mean, this is it's something deliberating, and you know, on water, it doesn't matter whether you have one leg, half a leg, or you pretty much.
Yeah, there were more than a couple able-bodied that left behind us. I would say easily.
Absolutely.
Michael, yeah. You must make videos out of it.
Yeah, Ran is very competitive, and he forgets that he can actually be my son. Yeah, when there is a sprint, he's a good one. When there is a longer range,
not so much. I sign on this declaration.
Well, what's infectious, we can already tell is the laughter and the joy that this is brought into your lives in different ways, and it really fascinating to hear about the different elements that have spoken to you. You're all competitive people in your own ways, and you've all recognized this healing quality of the sea. And so I suspect from our conversations that we had in advance that that we're onto something here, that you're onto something. And it's one of the reasons we really wanted to highlight the program in which is really evolving to reach other people, not only in Israel, potentially around the world, who are dealing with similar challenges and looking to the sea for the different qualities that you mentioned. So I think it's really interesting that your organization actually has a staff psychologist, and there's a recognition that part of what you're dealing with here is helping the mind heal as well as the body heal, as well as figuring out a new sense of identity and self with very competitive people who are used to only achieving great things and tackling great challenges. So I know we have one more video segment before I introduce Roy to explain this in more detail. Yeah, Shlomo, please.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that is, and honestly, I was a bit skeptic at first, but the group comprised of really people with multiple challenges, I would say. I don't want to call it disabilities. Okay, we've got people with post-trauma. You know, we had a guy, I'm not going to say his name, that used to be seasick. Every time he would go, you know what I'm talking about, right, Eran? After 5 minutes, he would throw up. We'll have to go back. And today, he's one of the best. He loves it. I mean, he loves it. He's consistent. He keeps coming. You know, we got people with post-trauma who it's something that, you know, for us, for Eran and myself, who lost a limb, and you can see the disability, somewhat it makes it easier, I would think. But for people with the, you know, trauma, I guess we also have sort of a trauma, but for them, it's a mental challenge, which for most people, very hard to comprehend. And I do see the motivation and the self-esteem that these guys get when they actually finish an hour and a half on you know, at the sea. It's remarkable, and honestly, it's inspiring to me as well. Yeah.
Some of their like everyday challenges or frustration is disappearing for at least an hour and a half, and then it just like escorting you through at least one day a week. So that's really great achievement or aspect of this activity, at least.
Well, and as you all said, Eran, it's nice that you're actually outside. It's giving us the feeling of, you know, we're going to hear more about what it means, you know, to include this in your schedule on a regular basis, because it definitely seems to me that, you know, a lot of you are urban people. You've got busy schedules, and just to make the commitment to get there early, to make this part of your routine, I think it also is something about says something about the shita here, the approach and the methodology that is working. So why don't we, I want to make sure we queue up this next video as well, as a way to introduce Roy's work and his perspective with the group. Roy, I have to admit that just even looking at those images of Michmoret and the tranquility of the sea, I realize some days you probably have rougher days out on the ocean, but it's de-stressing me, and I'm just sitting here in my room here in Washington, D.C. Tell us a little bit what you've seen happen. What is the process of healing that goes on that has worked particularly with this group from your perspective?
I think I'll refer to that, but first I'd like to say that something that is really difficult to show in videos and in these presentations is the sense of security and guidance that Eyal offers to the paddlers. He has a unique ability to adjust the technique to each individual's handicap or difficulty, and instill a sense of security on the water that is really, really quite amazing. This I can say from a personal perspective, is I've gone on a paddling venture once with the yawl, and this sensation is immediate. I think I'll try to say a few words about the therapeutic and transformative qualities of the sea itself, and then how SEASU and surf ski paddling can help dealing with physical and mental trauma. The sea is a place that holds quite a fascinating symbolic place in human fantasy. It's associated with both fear as a place of immense power, a danger of death, and a place of hope, a space through which one can journey in search of a better future, in search of a promised land. And throughout history, it symbolized the ultimate opportunity for a rite of passage, a process by which one leaves one group to join another, or often a process of reaching adulthood. Conquering the sea, sailing on adventures, facing ultimate challenges, only to return home victorious, wiser, richer, perhaps a hero. That's the essence of the sea. And this rite of passage, where the young set out on a journey to return home transformed, they will need to conquer inner demons, fears, find new strength, endure difficulties. And along the way, one form of the self will die in order to give space to the birth of another. And this fantasy of rebirth is closely linked with the transformative power of water itself. We can see it in many religions and cultures around the world, that water is linked with purification through ablutions, with washing away of sins, transformation, and rebirth through immersion in water. And this is the essence of the sea, and why the sea has healing and transformative power. But there are many kinds of rites of passage, and in Israeli society, the military service is one such journey. During these 3 years of service, Israeli youth enter a journey from which they're expected to emerge transformed, to become young adults. Some hope to emerge as heroes from their military service. They begin forming their adult personality by belonging and identifying with their military units. I think Eyal touched upon that feeling of camaraderie that he gained in the military service. And during this service, they face difficulties, they face life-threatening situations, sometimes injury or death of dear friends. Some become intimately acquainted with mortal fear. Some become morally injured. This is something that is often neglected, but moral injury is a big issue in PTSD. And for many of these young adults, these experiences prove to be too difficult, and this journey to adulthood is perceived as incomplete or even as a failure. They emerge transformed, but in a negative way. And upon their discharge from service, they need to adjust to this new reality, which includes mourning the person they once imagined they would become after their military service, a person now lost in the wake of the traumatic event. Often being discharged is also accompanied by a loss of identity and a sense of loneliness and abandonment by their military unit. And these feelings, along with the feeling of a loss of identity, hinders the process of healing and recovery. And so at this point, after being released from service, especially with an injury or a handicap, a new journey must begin, a journey which is meant to fix or to resolve this rite of passage that was derailed by the injury or trauma. And this journey is all about letting go of the past and of past imagined futures, and to make way for a new identity to appear. And in this process, one must challenge feelings of helplessness, overcome handicap, reacquaint oneself with a body transformed by injury, reassert the control of mind over body, which is a major issue in PTSD, and develop a sense of health and of ability and of personal growth. And I believe that surf ski paddling at SEASU offers just that. The paddlers set out to see on rigorous paddling ventures, conquering difficulties, fears, and aches, and pushing their bodies and spirits to new heights of health and ability. And they also discover a new group with which they can identify. Again, it was mentioned here before. And surf ski paddling, as I see it, is a medium of transformation and rebirth, exactly because of these qualities. And I think if you ask anyone on the team, you'll also discover that it offers ample opportunities for total immersion in the purifying and transformative seawater. This is actually quite invigorating early in the morning. Mm-hmm. I think specifically for PTSD, if we can dedicate a few minutes to describe, the unique situation of PTSD and how paddling can contribute to that, then it is a situation where, following exposure to a traumatic event, a whole array of physical, psychological, and behavioral symptoms appear. They're usually grouped into 4 clusters. The first is intrusion, which is really the hallmark of PTSD, which is intrusion of contents related to the traumatic event through recurrent intrusive memories, nightmares, flashbacks, and other dissociative symptoms. Marked alterations in arousal and reactivity, such as irritable behavior, angry outbursts, self-destructive behavior, hypervigilance, exaggerated startle response, and more. And I think these 2 clusters of symptoms benefit from paddling by the need to control one's body during paddling, to find that sense of balance, to focus on regulated breathing. There's a grounding and sensorial focusing through the repetitive paddling, through the feeling of the water, the wind, the sea salt. There's a form of thought distraction through the need to locate yourself in relation to the group, keep up with everyone, concentrate on the technique of the paddling. And I think all of these help both to ground one's body and assert control of mind over body while paddling, as well as put the paddler in a situation, in a surrounding that offers less triggers for intrusion. Another major group of symptoms is negative alterations in cognitions and mood, which are comprised of negative beliefs or expectations about oneself, an injury to the self-esteem and self-worth of a PTSD, a person suffering from PTSD. There's usually persistent negative emotional states and marked diminished interest in significant activities, feelings of detachment and estrangement from other persons, and persistent inability to experience positive emotions. And I think in this sense, physical activity in general encourages positive emotional states, but surfing, I think in particular, offers almost immediate experiences of success, while also allowing for opportunities to face challenges, which in turn helps recover self-esteem and a sense of self-worth. And the last group of symptoms, which is perhaps the most detrimental, I think, is avoidance. It's a behavioral group of symptoms that relates to the tendency to avoid thoughts, feelings, situations, places, people related or associated with a traumatic event because of the distress associated with this event. And over time, this avoidance leads to severely diminished activity and social interaction, and doesn't allow for situations in which to unlearn the negative emotions and cognitions that were acquired during the traumatic event. I think that the group, in this sense, often makes a huge difference between avoidance and participation. People arrive every week because they relate to a group, and if they don't arrive, the group often will reach out and pull them to come and participate in the activity. But also, I think paddling again gives a feeling of success and encourages active coping styles. And these feelings of success, in turn, encourage coping in other aspects of life as well, and diminish in this way avoidant behaviors.
Roy,
this is.
I was going to say that those four elements are really helpful as an understanding of the PTSD phenomenon, and I appreciate that the approach of this has to work for individuals first, right, and the things they're dealing with. And Ayala, I want to maybe come back to you, and you know, what you recognize that. You loved the water. You loved being in the water. You were, water polo player. But when you started experimenting with this group, with Michael, as you said, some of the people had less. It wasn't clear that going in cold water in the morning was necessarily a fun or exciting thing to do, or even for the person who got seasick on a regular basis. It provided an additional obstacle that they had overcome. So could you take us, what does a typical week look like in a session when people show up? Or how long does it take them to become a believer, I guess, in this methodology?
Look, I think everything is about communication and relationships, and one's ability to be able to connect, firstly on a very simple, face-to-face, eye-level communication. I don't really like to talk about myself, but sometimes I sit and I say to myself, you're a seaman, but I also see myself as a landman. But I think we all have just the basis of wanting to be out in nature, and is something that just on a very basic level makes everyone feel really, really good. So for me, my expectation of what people will experience when they come, on the Thursday morning at 6:15, whether it's 20 degrees Celsius or whether it's 12, I know the strength of coming together is firstly the camaraderie, because even for me, when the alarm clock rings at 5:30 in the morning and it's cold outside, I'm not the happiest person. But I know that I'll get out of bed and that I'll open the club, and as soon as I start seeing the faces roll in, I start warming up. And that basically warms everyone else up. So, it puts everything aside. And even though there are little obstacles, we know how to take care of those little obstacles, and nothing is forced. Everything is done on a very simple and honest and basic communication level. We'll never force someone to go in the water if they don't feel. But if we do see that, they can maybe, overcome that little hurdle, an hour later, things will look different. So, we don't always know who will arrive on a Thursday morning. But I think the more, the paddlers get involved, or the more time they spend in the water and in the sea, and that combination is what creates them becoming more consistent in the routine. And for me, that's basically the basic success. After we finish the group, I carry on instructing. And when I see everyone sitting, and you saw it in the clips, you see everyone sitting on the deck drinking coffee. So when I go back into the sea for my next session and see everyone sitting drinking coffee on the deck, I know that I've done my personal duty to my social responsibility of where I feel my identity lies.
Well, that's a phenomenal accomplishment. I just want to say that this recognition, you hear it from the others as well.
I'd like to just add one thing, please.
Yeah.
I don't want the focus to be on me. Okay. For me, I've just, planted a seed, because at the end of the day, what made this project happen is a group of volunteers from the club that without them helping and giving that, giving their time and giving their support and adding their spiritual value and their physical value, this wouldn't have happened. So, this project, when I look at it, I do see myself as the seed of it, but I can tell you that the tree wouldn't have grown without the support of the volunteers and Michael coming in and Roy and Shlomo and Perry and everyone.
Yeah, no, clearly, Michael, I was wondering if that's something you could comment on, like in Israeli society, because everyone serves, or someone who serves, it's a part of the air, it's a part of the culture, and unfortunately, the trauma and suffering that comes with that is also part of the culture. How did the club embrace this, part of the journey of connecting up directly with the vets' issues because it appears even from the clips that you showed that people are doing this for their own benefit as well. But I think this additional social good or social purpose that I was referring to feels like it's now part of the DNA of the organization and the club.
Right. Well, that's a thing. The military service here in Israel is a shared experience. It's one of those things that everyone talks about generationally. And that's, interestingly enough, what the multi-generational effects of trauma, post-trauma, was what brought me to Israel in my documentary study of the Shoah. And so even for me to step into this is having an understanding of not just individual trauma, but a societal type of shared trauma, shared experience. Now, as I said earlier, with me coming in from the outside, it has given me a perspective that the others don't have, but it also has, it could have, or very easily been, me being a complete outsider of not being involved in it as I have been. But I see this understanding of this shared experience, and it's not just with people from the certain units that we have represented within our club, which there is a lot of gentle joshing between people, a lot of teasing, but it's it's a shared understanding that everyone brings. Everyone knows somebody who's experienced these things. So that's a shared starting point, but also the shared healing point that I think we have at the club.
Well, Shlomo, you said something earlier that I'm still digesting, frankly, that you had a moment when you viewed the prosthetic as an anchor, and you instead, I guess, had a rebirth, as we heard sort of described, like this other sense of yourself without the prosthetic in the water, being able not only to find your own balance, but to then compete with Iran, who's a real competitive guy and could be your son. Could you describe that empowerment that gave you, this sense of new purpose that you had even without the prosthetic?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things you learn as an amputee is to compensate. And it's like, God forbid, if you're blind, I mean, you learn how to compensate. Your other senses are all compensating on the missing limb or the missing eyesight or the missing whatever. There is also a sense of, being whole with your body. I mean, your body is your body. I mean, it's not like you've done something wrong, and learning to accept your body as it is and make the most out of it is part of the, I would say, rehabilitation process that young challenge individuals are actually facing. So, for me, I tried initially to use my prosthetic leg on the kayak. And I don't know how many of the viewers understand how surf ski works. In fact, we didn't cover that in this conversation. You guys leaving?
Yeah, alone.
I know. Just leave me the key, okay? I don't know how much you guys know about surf ski, but basically you sit on a very narrow kayak, pretty much the size of your butt if you're lucky, okay? And you've got two pedals, which you actually have to control yourself, or not just for turning, but actually even when you roll forward, you got to tilt your left and right. This is pretty much a big momentum play when you actually use your pedal. So, I realized at some point that this is actually an anchor, and it slows me down because it's doing nothing. It's pretty much, sitting there, unable to move. I might as well take it off and leave it on the shore. And that's exactly what I did. So I guess for me it was natural. For others, maybe that saw me did help them to say, okay, you know what, forget it. I leave the leg on the beach. And, in the group, we've got people with below knee, people above knee. And I think people above knee now are actually doing it with one leg. And you put your one leg in the center and you pretty much move it when you need to maneuver. And you compensate with whatever you've got left.
And Shlomo, one last question. I know we didn't have a lot of time to explore it, but there was this interesting idea that I think Ayal had put out there. But am I a sea person or am I a land person? And you're definitely now a little of both, right? I mean, you know what the corporate boardroom looks like, and you know what it looks like to work in the world of finance and companies, and yet you have to do you leave that completely behind when you're in the ocean and you're in the kayak?
Listen, for me, I leave in about half an hour drive in the morning. When I leave at 5:30 my house, and I have to drive almost 2 hours to my office because I hit the traffic when I get out of the sea. So it's a huge price I'm paying every time I have to go. And I'll tell you that for me, and I do a lot of sports, you know, I bike, I swim, I ski during the winter. And for me, sports has a lot of parallel to business. You know, there are a lot of ups and downs. There are a lot of deadlocks. There are a lot of risky situations. You got to keep your calm. I mean, I see so many similarities between, you know, Eyal, I think once, I don't know if you remember that, but Eyal once, I don't know if he knows what I'm about to talk about, but he took maybe five of us and I joined. I was the only amputee. All the rest were able-bodied. And it was a pretty windy day. I mean, like you couldn't move your pedal forward. This is how strong the wind was. And it was a scary moment. I mean, there were a couple scary moments. For me, it felt like irresponsible to take me out of the to the ocean. But he also said, Shlomo, you can do it. I followed, you know. And then pretty much everybody fell and we lost control. He brought us back to shore. I said, okay, thank God I can see shower. I said, no, guys, we're going to go back. We got to fix this. I mean, you guys got to have a good experience before you actually get out of the ocean. And it was quite an experience. But I'll tell you, going through these things, business is no different. You know, I'm all my life been in high-tech companies and startups, and, you know, you have months with no salary. I mean, cash to pay salary to your employees. I mean, how do you actually keep them motivated? I mean, you've got to raise money. You're not finishing the quarter because your salespeople are not selling. You have to report to investors. I mean, I see a lot of, you know, similarities between these worlds, and I love it. I mean, for me, it's you know, every time I have an injury every now and then, and I have to actually do nothing, it's pain. It's pain. So it goes together.
Wow, what a really delightful insight. Thanks for sharing that, Roy. When you hear patients or as a researcher, as a clinician, talking about an activity or a therapy that works both for moral injuries as well as physical injuries, what does that represent for you in terms of a therapeutic you know, approach for what SEASU is doing?
I think, do you mean moral injuries or?
It seems to me it works for both. And I'm wondering how many therapies have that distinction, that they actually are beneficial for people dealing with both moral injuries as well as physical injuries.
I think that in PTSD specifically, because of the injury to the sense of self, there's a process of loss and mourning, which physical injuries often also involve. And then physical activities such as in SEASU can address this part of the therapeutic process, perhaps even better than sitting in a therapy room, because they allow the development of a new sense of self through activity. If we talk specifically about the moral part of injury, then I think in this aspect, people who suffer from PTSD with a moral injury, they also have to come to terms with things they have done in their service and accept responsibility for what happened, accept their role in things that happened. Usually there's a sense of blame that is disproportionate to the amount of influence they've had on the situation. And I think putting someone at sea. What?
No, that was my.
I think putting someone at sea and having to accept how small they are in relation to other forces around them, accept situations in which they have very little control, does a lot to put things back into proportion.
Well, this is, one of the remarkable things I think that we learned today is the innovation and the empathy of Israeli society, which we've discussed in lots of different contexts. Really, your program has shown incredible results already in building a community that can heal itself, in a sense, taking advantage of the resources that are around Israel, and certainly the sea is one of them. Michael and Eyal, thank you for taking us on this journey together with you. Shlomo and Roy and Iran, who we lost off camera at some point. My great hope is that Iran is out on the ocean somewhere already. But we will be thinking about all five of you out on the ocean. It's really such an incredible program that you've developed, and we will continue to share this and your developments. So thanks all of you for being with us here today. This Sunday, we do a form of physical therapy of Pilates live from Tel Aviv and from New York. So we hope you'll join Naomi and Becky in the continuation of our Pilates series. For those of you that enjoy that in the virtual, you get to do it from your own homes. And I just want to share a word of prayer for healing to a close friend of ours here at America-Israel Friendship League, Connie, who was hospitalized, and we wish her a real refuah shlema. She's one of our most loyal participants in our webinars. We miss her when she's not able to join us like today, and we hope for a speedy recovery for her as well. Thanks everyone for joining us. Please come back on Sunday for Pilates. We're here every Wednesday and Sunday. We've been together in this virtual community during the challenges of this pandemic, where we all need friendship, need community, need inspiration. And certainly today, that's something I think we can all say we learned from SEASU that we could enjoy together. Shavua Tov, have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.